This week we are heading up north above America to Canada for the Canadian GP in Formula One. Here's everything that you need to know on today's episode of Track Limits. Let's dive into it. So I'm going to keep up with this conversational style format here and really dive into some notes about this weekend's race. Everything from the schedule to the weather to the tire allocation to the track to the DRS zones, all the corners you need to pay attention to, essentially everything you need to know. And let's dive into the schedule. So it starts on Friday, June 13th and goes to Sunday, June 15th. We got practice 1 at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, followed by practice 2 at 5 p.m. on Friday. On Saturday, we have practice 3 at 12:30 a.m. with qualifying at 4 p.m. Then on Sunday, we have the Canadian GP. That's going to take place at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So this race is going to be a very interesting race. They're at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. It's a 14-corner circuit, 6 to the left, 8 to the right, and it's about 4.36 kilometers per lap. And this track is known for its aggressiveness, its low grip, low downforce, and also the passing zones and the corners. We've seen some wild things happen here at Canada and turn 1, turn 8, turn 10, and turn 13. And so that's what you need to pay attention to this weekend when it comes to the corners that I'm particularly looking into. So a couple other things that you need to notice when it comes to these corners is that this is going to be a lot of hard braking. Very, very hard braking, especially in the 1, especially into the hairpin in 10. And like I said, 8 and 13. So this is going to be a prime opportunity for drivers to lock up, but also to make passes, especially if the conditions, specifically the weather conditions, might be a little bit hectic. But speaking about the weather, what does this weekend look like? So it's going to be pretty much sunny all day, some clouds, and then a little bit of rain, like a 20% chance on Friday. Don't think it's going to be too much of a big deal, but we know how weather is here in America, but in Canada, it can rain too. So as of right now, as of shooting this on Tuesday, June 10th, the weather could change. And if it changes, well, we could see a repeat of 2024 and it start to rain where Max Verstappen got the win over the two McLarens. And so let's take a look a little bit at what these tire compounds are going to look like for this weekend. It'll be the C4, the C5, and the C6, the softest in the range here in Montreal. Like I said before, there is a lot of heavy braking zones. It's a lot of long straights, a lot of low downforce, and so they're going to bring the softest compounds to this race. Looking at specifically the DRS zones, I want to talk about those because we have two, technically 3 zones, if you want to call them, because one is technically one is before one corner and one's after one corner, but it's still a DRS zone. So the first one is on the back straight. So the detection point is just before turn 6 with the activation between turn 7 and turn 8. Going to want to pay attention to that. And then you have the second DRS zone on Casino Straight. So right after turn 9, that is the actual DRS detection point is right after turn 9. Right before you get into the hairpin, and then the activation is between turns 11 and turn 12, that somewhat long straightaway before you get into the hard right-hander and hard left-hander of 13 and 14, and then it's continued between turns 14 and turn 1. So basically, you're going to almost try to do a double DRS point here. You can essentially get within, if you can get within a second of the car behind in front of you, going into, I guess that would be going into or just before turn 6, you get that. You can suck right up to the back of the car in front of you between turn 7 and turn 8. Keep that gap there. You're going to get that detection point right after turn 9. Go into the hairpin. You're locked in for DRS for a decent portion of the lap on a straight line speed. So you're going to see a lot of these cars, and I think a lot of the drivers try to set up the pass in between turn, I guess that would be 11 and 12 and 14 and 1. And so that's something that you must pay attention to this weekend. If you notice, oh my gosh, he has DRS, why can't he pass on the first detection point in the first zone? It's probably because they're trying to set it up so they can get it on the second zone to blow by them. Because if you can get by a driver between turn 11 and turn 12, then you're just set up for a free DRS between turns 14 and turns 15 because you activated back on turn 9. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to pay attention to this weekend. Now, looking at specifically what happened last year, like I said before, Verstappen got the win ahead of the two McLarens. I think that this is going to be a McLaren show, and I'm curious, who do you think is going to be the winner of the Canadian GP? The weather seems to be able to hold off. I just don't know if teams can combat what McLaren is able to do. So if I have to make a pick for this week, you know what? I'm going to go with Mr. Oscar Piastri again. I'm going to lock him in for another win. I think he's just too good. He can qualify well. He doesn't make the mistakes. All the same stuff. But let's talk about really quick some track highlights. I'm going to list off a couple that are very important to this track. You have the Wall of Champions. That is at the final chicane. And this has claimed a lot of big wrecks, a lot of instances going on there. So make sure to watch out for that. Like I said before, it's fast. It is low downforce, and it's a semi-permanent street circuit if you want to consider it. And a lot of drivers love this track. And you want to pay attention to turn 10 because turn 10 is where you're going to potentially see a lot of action. If a driver can get the DRS and DRS detection point 1 and zone 1 and somehow get around or be just behind the car going into or going after turn 9, get that second detection point, pass them before turn 10, you have free DRS because you still technically got that detection point. You are behind the car in front of you by the detection point. Therefore, you're going to get that on 2 different straights, which is going to be very important. Again, this is going to be a lot of quick acceleration, a lot of flowing sections between corners, and also the brakes. I think the brakes are going to be very, very important this weekend. You're going to see a lot of lockups. You're going to see a lot of action going in and going out of corners. And this is a great opportunity for overtakes as well. So we'll see how many overtakes will be in this race. So I got to ask, who's your pick to win the Canadian GP this weekend? And just to remind you all again, the race takes place at 2 p.m. on Sunday. 2 p.m. on Sunday. So make sure to watch for that. It's at the same time as the NASCAR Mexico City race, so a little bit of a conflict there, but I think both races are going to be great. As always, make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video of Track Limits and this episode of Track Limits. I'm going to try to make it a lot more conversational, like I'm having a FaceTime with somebody, like I'm having a FaceTime with you right now. Also, I want to let you know that if you haven't checked out Happy Hour Racing, go check them out. I will update you on who my Happy Hour Racing happiest of them all will be in my recap video of the Canadian GP next week, going out on June 17th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central. And as always, like I said, make sure to hit that subscribe and stay within track limits. You got to do it. Enjoy the Canadian GP, and I'll see you next week.